The story begins with tension already in the air. The African Democratic Congress, ADC, thought they had a clear plan. They wanted to zone their 2027 presidential ticket. They wanted someone strong. Someone clean. Someone who could shake the table. And the name that kept coming up was Peter Obi. For days, their top members pushed the idea. Some said Obi should come in quietly, take the ticket, and let them build a fresh force around him. Others said the party needed a national figure who already had the trust of the youth. They believed that if they could bring Obi into their structure, everything would change for them overnight. They believed the party would suddenly look brighter, louder, and more serious. Inside their private talks, they kept repeating one thing. If we get Obi, we have a chance. That was the fuel behind their strategy. But what they did not expect was the response they would hear. After several quiet conversations, after long hours of internal planning, after crafting what they felt was a smart and safe plan, the moment finally came. They reached out. They made their offer. They asked him to take the ticket. And for the first time, they waited for an answer that could shape their future. But the answer they received was nothing close to what they hoped for. Peter Obi rejected the proposal. It was not a half answer. It was not a soft maybe later. It was not a diplomatic let me think about it. It was a clear and complete no. He told them his position without confusion. He stands on a Southern 2027 presidential ticket that must be unopposed. He wants a clean ticket. He wants a united structure. He wants no internal battle. And he wants full support behind the idea that 2027 belongs to the South. This stunned ADC's leadership. They were ready to bend their rules for him. They were ready to adjust their strategies. They were ready to give him room to operate in his own style. But what they were not ready for was someone who refused to bend at all. To them, it was a shock because they believed they had offered something attractive. They believed the zoning deal would open a new doorway. They believed they could present themselves as the fresh ground Obi needed. But Obi's response showed one thing clearly. He will not enter any party that is not fully, openly, and completely standing behind a Southern presidential move. This changed everything. For some ADC leaders, the rejection felt like a setback. For others, it felt like a wake-up call. But for almost everyone inside the party, it was a moment that forced them to rethink their entire journey toward 2027. In the hours after the rejection, discussions became heated. Some senior voices complained that they approached Obi too early. They argued that the party still needed to build its own strength before inviting someone with such a high profile. They said the rejection made them look weak. Others disagreed completely. They said the rejection was a sign of growth. They believed that if Peter Obi even considered them, even for a moment, it proved that ADC was now standing close to the national spotlight. They believed this showed they were no longer a small group in the corner. But beneath all the noise, one fact was sitting quietly, waiting to be addressed. ADC had no backup plan. They had built their strategy around the idea that the offer would work. They thought Obi would see their ticket as a safe ground. They believed he would accept a platform that looked open and flexible. Instead, he stood firm, and he stood higher than their expectations. And this is why the rejection hit the party so deeply. It was not just about losing a candidate. It was about losing a direction they believed was perfect. For some members, Obi's answer was a message that the party was still not strong enough to attract a national figure without offering major compromises. They began to question their internal structure. They began to question their influence. They began to wonder if they had the right strategy for 2027 at all. And this pressure became too heavy to ignore. Within hours, calls were made. Messages were exchanged. Key decision-makers began to move. The national leadership agreed on one thing. They must hold an emergency meeting. They needed to talk. They needed to adjust quickly. They needed to find a new path before they fall behind. Because one rejection from one man had changed the political air around them. It forced them to look inward. It forced them to see their weaknesses. It forced them to face the truth. If they do not move fast, 2027 will leave them behind. And that is how a simple proposal turned into a major political shake-up that nobody in ADC expected. The ADC meeting is not a normal gathering. It is not a simple sit-down. It is not something they planned months ago. It is a meeting built from shock, confusion, and quiet fear. And everyone inside the party knows it. From the moment Peter Obi rejected their zoning proposal, the atmosphere inside ADC changed. The party leaders began to feel exposed. Everything they thought they were controlling suddenly slipped away from them. And this is what pushed them into calling the emergency meeting that is now shaking their entire structure. For many of them, this meeting is the biggest test the party has faced since the last election. It is not just about their future plans. It is not just about 2027. It is about whether they can survive the political wave that is rising in front of them. As calls went out, people began to speak in quiet tones. They talked about mistakes. They talked about wrong timing. Some even talked about how the rejection makes them look like a party that is still trying to find its feet. Words like unprepared, too fast, and not ready started to move around. And this is why the meeting carries so much weight. From the top level down to the state leaders, there is a sense that they need to correct themselves before things get worse. They understand that politics works like a river. If you are not swimming forward, you are already being pushed back. And ADC cannot afford to be pushed back now. Inside the party, one of the biggest arguments is whether they misread the entire situation. Some believe they did. They think they placed too much hope on one person. They think they made the mistake of building their strategy around someone who was never fully inside their circle. These people argue that the party should step back and rebuild its own strength instead of looking for a big name to save them. But there is another group, and they argue something completely different. They say the rejection is not a failure. They say it shows how close the party is to major relevance. They say the fact that Obi was even part of the conversation means the party is stepping into national politics with real presence. In their eyes, the rejection is not the end, it is the beginning of a bigger negotiation. This is exactly why the meeting will be intense. It will not be soft. It will not be a friendly roundtable. It will be full of strong voices pushing different agendas. Some will demand the party shift direction immediately. Others will say the party must not rush or panic. But one thing is certain, no one will walk into that room calm. The party knows that time is moving fast. Political movements are taking shape in different corners of the country. People are forming teams. Leaders are choosing sides. And the longer ADC waits without a clear path, the more they risk becoming invisible in the coming election season. Another problem they face is the pressure from outside observers. Political analysts, media groups, and other parties are watching this situation closely. They want to know whether ADC will rise from the setback or collapse under it. This outside pressure adds even more weight to the meeting. Every decision, every word, every plan that comes out of that room will be examined. But the real fear inside the party is deeper. It is the fear that they may lose their momentum before they even start. They understand that politics is about timing. It is about creating the right moment. And they believed they had created that moment with their proposal. But now, with the rejection, the question is simple. Do they know how to create another moment? As the meeting gets closer, small cracks begin to show inside the party. Some leaders begin to form quiet camps. Some start to whisper about bringing in a new strategy team. Some even float the idea of approaching other Southern figures to fill the gap. This shows the level of pressure they are under. A single rejection is now pushing them to consider options they never expected. But at the center of the storm is one truth. ADC must make a major decision, and they must make it now. They can either rebuild fast and stay relevant, or they can break apart slowly and fade into the background. And that is why the meeting is a big deal. Not because it is happening, but because of what it represents. It is the meeting that will decide whether ADC enters the 2027 race strong or enters it weak. It is the meeting that will show whether the party is ready for national politics, or if they are still learning how to survive in it. Every word that will be said in that room matters. Every idea that will be brought forward matters. Every choice they make will shape their future. And this is why all eyes are on the ADC meeting, because the party is standing at a crossroads, forced to choose the direction that may decide its entire fate. Now, this is where the story becomes even sharper. While ADC tries to understand what went wrong and how to fix it, another political giant is quietly losing ground. And that giant is Atiku Abubakar. At first, nobody inside his camp felt any real danger. They believed 2027 would follow the same pattern as past elections. They believed the field would remain open long enough for Atiku to gather strength. They believed he would still stand as the strongest northern figure going into the race. In their view, nothing had changed. But they were wrong. Peter Obi's firm stand for a southern, unopposed presidential ticket did something none of them expected. It sent a wave across the political space. It created a new direction. It made people rethink their alliances. It made power brokers study the map again. And suddenly, Atiku's smooth road did not look smooth anymore. In politics, timing is everything. A single strong move can change entire strategies. And Obi's rejection of ADC was not just a simple no, it was a declaration that he would not step back for anyone. It told the political class that the South was not waiting for any agreement or rotation talk. They were stepping forward early. They were claiming their space before anyone else could fill it. This shift has started to affect Atiku because his strength depends on controlling the narrative. If he controls the field, he controls the momentum. But when someone else rises early with a solid regional message, the field splits. And when the field splits, momentum starts to drift away. Inside the northern political circle, some of Atiku's old supporters are beginning to pay attention. They see what is happening. They see Obi taking a strong stand. They see southern groups waking up and refusing to negotiate. And they are asking themselves a simple question. If the South is already this united today, what happens in 2027? This question is not small. It is not harmless. It is a question that can remove confidence from any campaign. Because when regional politics becomes strong, national politics becomes harder. And this is the situation Atiku is walking into. Another problem facing Atiku is the pressure coming from political observers who are beginning to say something new. The next election may not be about parties, it may be about regions. If this idea grows, it becomes a major problem for him. Not because he lacks influence, but because regional politics always favors the side with the strongest emotional message. And right now, that emotional message is coming from the South. The message is simple. It is our turn. No debate. No excuse. Even people who are not fully on Obi's side can feel the energy. They can feel the shift. They can feel the determination. And once that type of energy starts moving, it is hard to stop. Atiku's team is not blind. They understand the risk. Some of them are already trying to create new strategies. They plan to hold meetings. They plan to reach out to more groups. They plan to remind the North that their candidate is still the most experienced. But even with all that planning, the truth remains. They did not expect this early Southern push. This is why the ADC situation matters so much. The party may look small compared to the big ones, but their drama is creating real political signals. Their failed attempt to bring Obi in has become a warning to other parties. It shows that Obi's position is firm. It shows he is not moving without full support. And it shows he is ready to shape the 2027 story early. For Atiku, this means he no longer has the calm space he thought he had. He is now entering a battlefield where the strongest Southern message may rise faster than he can counter. And even though the election is still far away, the early signs matter. Political storms always start quietly before they explode. And right now, that quiet storm is building. All of this leads to one simple reality. Atiku is losing ground, not because he made a mistake, but because someone else changed the game sooner than expected. If his camp does not adjust fast, if they do not read the changing signals correctly, they may enter the real campaign season already weakened. And recovering from that kind of weakness is never easy. Meanwhile, the South is watching. The youth are watching. Neutral groups are watching. Everyone feels that something different is coming in 2027. Something sharper. Something louder. Something more united from the southern side. And all of it began with one rejection, one decision, one message. I stand on a southern ticket and I will not move. That message has now pushed ADC into crisis. And pushed Atiku into a corner. As the political temperature continues to rise.